As leaders, walking with people longer than you ever imagined just has to happen. Those who teach Gen Alpha need to long suffer with them. Those who teach Gen Z need to long suffer with them. Those who teach millennials need to be able to long suffer with them. Jesus operated in love in such a way and humility in such a way that he was in Mary's stomach for 9 months. He would not override his humanity for the ministry. He patiently walked with his disciples when they didn't get his teaching, when they lacked faith, when they asked questions. Remember, to not make discipleship a burdensome thing. It is a rewarding thing. It is a slow walk, but it's the right walk. Welcome to the People Growth Discipleship Podcast. Don't just grow your church, grow your people. I'm your host, Kendra Dublin, the pastor's ally, and this season's theme is InterGenerational Discipleship from the womb to the tomb. We will discuss various subtopics to aid church leaders and be a bridge for discipleship resources, partnerships, and strategies. If that sounds edifying to your walk with Christ and your congregation, then tune in. Hi, everyone. It's Kendra Dublin, and we are back for another episode. And this episode I'm excited about because we're talking about intergenerational patience. And I feel like that's right down my alley because of this previous book that I have published, Pathway to Patience. But also because when it comes to discipleship, patience is something that we all need, especially when it comes to intergenerational discipleship with different generations and those from Alpha all the way to the silent generation, and just being able to walk alongside each other in a way that glorifies God, because that dictates how our succession is from year to year, from generation to generation. And so I kind of want to get started, as I normally do, with some stories about how patience is very important from my own personal story of discipleship, and then also segue into just some other studies so that we can glean not only from this, but from the text. So when I started this ministry in 2019, that was when I had basically just remodeled the ministry that I had. And so it was all about my 6-month package, which was my discipleship package, but it was a coaching package at the time. And so it was mostly in the marketplace. So I was helping other believers who wanted to have like some kind of a ministry that had to do with business, whether it was like speaking or writing books. And so I was a resource for them. But during that 6-month time frame, they would get what they need and they would be good. That's kind of how I viewed it. Because that's all they needed. We walk through it, allow God to do his thing, and you'll be good to go. And then whatever else that they needed, God would provide that, because I'm not always going to assume that I am the discipler for you for all of your life. More than likely, I'm here for a season, and God will have other people disciple you even during that time and beyond what we do. They just had to, quote unquote, stick to the plan. And so once I brought it to my own church, in the same digital package and lens that I had in the marketplace, they would do the same thing. For those 6 months, we would have the discipleship. We would get together. We would talk. We would just commune with each other, and they would be good. They would filter into the ministries, and they'd be ready for whatever it is that God would have them to do. Y'all can already see where this is going, right? And so once I made it a physical copy, a workbook, which was maybe about a year and a half later, because that's the way that God was leading me to do it. I thought, okay, they do this 14-week class, because that's what I brought it down from, a 6-month class to 14 weeks, almost kind of like in a semester style for our church. And they'll be fine with this, and everything they need will be here, and we'll move forward. And so it's funny because I was thinking that, but once I had the workbook, something had changed, because the Lord had given me a full system. So I not only had the discipleship class, but then I had the evangelism class that he gave me, the type of small groups that he wanted, and then a package for ministry engagement to be able to help new members and the ministry leaders as people are filtering into their the ministry that they lead, just helping them decide is this the right place they should be in, and just being able to go to the leaders and say, all right, who do you need, and what is this looking like, and what is that looking like, who's best suited for this. And so I started to see this whole system shape up over a matter of 30 to 60 days. And so I already knew now at this point, like the initial, 6-month thing wouldn't necessarily be the thing now that I'm seeing this system emerge. But that's just where my mindset was, because that's all God had given me so far. And so I had this system, and by 2024, our congregation was utilizing the full system, not just the People Growth Discipleship workbook, but also the full People Growth Discipleship system. And so we're starting to integrate that. And then in 2025, it's our second year. And this is a type of integration where it's not just a year, it takes a few years, because there's multiple pieces that go along with the system. And so we're in year 2 of implementing the system of the discipleship, the evangelism class, and all of that. Our People Growth Discipleship workbook is available for purchase on Amazon. Our 3 pillars are get your mind right, get your ministry right, and get your church right. This workbook is designed for new members and those who need a reset with God, transition from being spectators to disciples for the kingdom. If you want to check out the full system to see if it works for your congregation, check out the link in the show notes to learn more. And so by this time, I started to have individuals ask me if I'm still doing discipleship. And while I started in 2024, helping my own congregation to integrate to the discipleship system, I stopped helping individuals in the online world and those that were even in the area, because I needed to fully give my time and my mind to what we were doing at South Central. And so I kind of had to shut those things down. And so now people were starting to come to me, and I was almost sensing peace that it was fine to go ahead and start working with some of the individuals, but they were actually here in my area. It wasn't just people who I could just get on Zoom with, but people that were actually here, who had churches that they go to, but had not really been discipled yet. And they really wanted to join in the community that I was had started, years previously. And so I ended up starting to disciple them. And as they integrated into the system and South Central was integrating into the system, God was starting to show me the even better process. And that's where my eyes started to open even more to what discipleship was. I was beginning to see a process, not just of 3 months or of 6 months or a year, not even 2 years, but a process of 3 years. And so he was starting to show me that this isn't a one-time piece. We all know that sanctification is a lifelong journey. But the pieces and the systems that he was giving me through working with the church and working with the ladies, he was showing me from year to this year, what it can actually look like, modeling more of how Jesus was with his disciples versus just being with them for a short period of time. And so as the ladies were in the discipleship workbook earlier this year, or earlier in 2025, we stopped at a certain point, and it ended up being very close to all of them stopping at a very similar point where we started doing 30 days of meditation. And so the work that we were doing in the workbook, we came out of that to focus on the things that were really like strongholds for them at that particular time. And so we said, instead of continuing to work through the workbook, let's go ahead and meditate on the scriptures of the things that you're continuing to wrestle with at this time. And so that's what we did. And I could be a little bit looser with the individuals that I work with. They also get together, and we also get together as a group. But when we come together weekly, it's individual work, and I can kind of offshoot it from just the 14 weeks because we're not in a particular schedule when it comes to those who are individuals. And so I'm starting to see, and God is allowing me to see, how does this work within a structure setting? How does this work when I can be a little bit looser in a particular setting when it comes to discipleship, and how I need to be patient in what both of them kind of look like, but also how can I draw these two together, and just recognizing, like, when you do start discipleship, you do have to be intentional about what it looks like. But how do you even introduce that to a congregation where it is structured, but then over time you're able to loosen it up because you're continuing to build more and more and more disciples, and helping them to conform to the image of Christ. And so, as I was starting to see that, the structure part to the little bit looser part of discipleship, I was also starting my Follow Me curriculum. So back in 2024, I had written a curriculum for the Foundations of Faith. It was something that God was leading me towards for years, and it was time to like actually write it. And so this past year, our congregation as well has started the Follow Me curriculum for those who have gone through the discipleship class and through the evangelism class. And so we've been implementing that for the past few months. And as I had recorded and had two people walk through it, I was able to bring it to my own congregation, now having at least walked with it through with a couple of people to help me recognize, okay, maybe I should update this, maybe I should fix this, or this is good this way, or this is good that way. So just doing a little bit of testing the system itself before I brought it to South Central, which is exactly what I did with People Growth Discipleship. And so we've been implementing that. And then I was like, okay, I'm starting to see how a 1 year thing goes into 2 years, because the Follow Me curriculum is a fall spring kind of thing. So it's not just, 6 weeks or 3 months. It's a full 7 months for the Foundations of Faith class. I'm like, all right, this is kind of going into a 2-year time period. And so over the past year, God has been showing me through discipling at my church, discipling the individuals, and even coaching and discipling those prior to me bringing it to South Central a few years back, that I am, or that I need to be patient with the church, with my friends, through the book that I wrote, and that I was leaving people too soon. So I was leaving people in their infancy. I was not discipling people for a long time period, just assuming that, okay, within 6 months, they'll get what they need from me. God will help them with whatever they need help with. And, I'm not the end all be all, which is a good thing to think through, because we all need to humble ourselves, as leaders and teachers. It's not like you're the only person that somebody needs to go to when it comes to counsel or discipleship. But the Lord was showing me that I needed to be #more patient with the process that God was taking them through, and asking God to help me to understand discipleship better and help myself in the process. He's been able to show me what it means to be communal, what it means to grow individually, and how it's not just a one-off thing, and that I need to be better at being patient with all of the pieces of discipleship and bringing people from one place to another, not stopping at a certain standpoint. And so when I started to think through, when I started to think through this process, I recognized even the people years ago that I work with, there's a level of me leaving them in their infancy. And so I like the way pastors.com labels it, the phases of discipleship. And I'll go ahead and share it with you all, because I've basically adopted this framework because I love it. So the phases of discipleship is phase 1, parenthood. This is where you gain a relationship with the one who is discipling you. This is where you gain your identity in Christ, leaving the world, leaving the things of the past, leaving the things that you've been struggling with, and strongholds, and just different things that have been, desires of you over the years, and just getting intimate with God and having time with the Lord, like really spending time with the Lord. This is all a part of the parenting phase, where you are teaching the people that you are discipling intimacy with God. So it's much more communal at this point. It's not just, I'm just teaching and teaching and teaching, but it's communal, it's relational. And so phase 1 is parenthood. And I kind of liken it to the Beatitudes in Matthew 5-7, where the Lord is trying to reframe how Israel thought about like the different laws and the way they thought about things, and the fact that they were under Roman rule and their ancestors were in idolatry. My book, Pathway to Patience, How to Give God Control So You Can Fulfill Your Ministry, is great for personal devotion, small groups, and churches. But don't just take my word for it. Ira Booker says, "Oh, how you are teaching us through your life how to trust God while walking through our written life by God right into our ministry to bring glory to God." Or Dr. Nicholas Glenn, who says, "If you ever found yourself in the balance of self-will versus God's will, this book will be a great benefit to you." Or Tiffany Malone, who says, "This book is a combination of open honesty, personal testimony, and biblical truth, all bound together in a how to let go and let God manual." Now go ahead and get your copy on Amazon today. So the place in the space that they would have been at the time of Jesus coming to save his people, he called them lost sheep. And so they had strayed away from him. And so when he comes and he starts teaching and preaching, he's starting to share, you have heard it said this, but this is what it means. Or you have heard it said about this, but this is what I want you to do. And so he's starting to change the way they think. So it's more of a change in identity, leaving the things you used to live by and the ways you would work through things, and gaining a different kind of relationship with God through leaving those things behind and taking on this new identity, and for them this new covenant as he was their Messiah. So that is all about parenthood, gaining relationship, being communal, understanding your identity in Christ, leaving the world behind, getting intimate with God, getting relational with God. And then there's phase 2. So that's the pace setting phase of discipleship. And that's the imitation phase. So that is the point where you say, well, I did this, now you do this. I taught this, now you teach this. We see that when Jesus sends his disciples out by twos. We see that in Matthew 10, Mark 6, and Luke 9, and where he is teaching them. They're seeing him perform these miracles and cast out demons and heal the sick. And then he says, well, you all do the same thing. And so we see this part where they're not just only having this parenthood, this relational time with Jesus, but they're also seeing what he does. And they get to a place where they actually imitate. They do the very thing. They start pace setting that he did. And so he not only commissions them when he leads, but he actually commissions them while he's with them, so that he can teach them even more deeply. Now he can teach through experiences, because I'm pretty sure they had different conversations with God. This happened and this happened. And even when Jesus tells them, well, I saw Satan fall like lightning, but don't rejoice in all that. Rejoice that your name is in the book. And so they're able to talk about what happened, and he could share with them as they came back to talk with him, wisdom about those things. And so even for me, I have to be mindful in those who are in the pace setting stage of discipleship. So when I go somewhere, I should probably bring this person I've been discipling. They're in the pace setting phase. When we come and get together as a group, those are in the pace setting phase, you'll be the one that shares the word as we end our time together. I'm not going to be the one. You share the word. So we're getting them into a point where we can pace set, where we continue to teach, and also where they learn their discipler even more personally, how I walk through things, how I deal with difficult situations personally, or when it comes to ministry. So it's both things happening all at the same time, but it's the imitation phase where you start pace setting with your discipler. And they're able to learn more, and they're able to understand your walk even better, so that they can imitate it in the way that Christ would be glorified. And then phase 3 is partnering. So this is where the discipler and the one who is being discipled start to work together even more closely, so that they can assume the role of teacher, of discipler, of small group leader. And that's important because we need to be able to show people in the phase of leadership what that looks like. Not only, again, being with them, but also having that time where we do some more pace setting, having some more time where you have more time in teaching, more time in walking through leadership roles and what it looks like to be a leader. This part will be more so where you would hand off anybody that is looking to be someone like a discipler or a small group leader or a teacher to your pastors, to your senior leaders, so that they can go into the phase 3 partnering with those people, because a pastor shouldn't be doing all of the initial work, but as people continue to grow and learn, then the seniors can actually begin to walk along with them. And so we also see this partnering phase with Jesus when Jesus says, the Spirit will be with you, to his disciples. When I leave, he'll be your advocate. He will teach you everything you need to know. He will be your lawyer. And so we see this when he even says, I no longer call you servants, but friends, because you know my Father's business. And that's when he calls them friends, not just someone I'm discipling you, not somebody who is just my servant. Like we would see in discipling partnerships throughout the scriptures, like we see with Joshua and Moses, where he's doing ministerial work for him, almost like an intern. But it's more of, oh, no, this person is actually coming to partner with me now because they know what it is that I know. We've had the relational part. We've had the imitation part. We have gained a deeper relationship. Now it's time for them to assume the role of a teacher. And so that's what it is when it comes to the partnering phase, and allowing the senior leaders to work through that. And also within these phases, depending on the type of classes that you have, being able to be assistants in these different classes as well, and different gatherings, so they get even more knowledge and wisdom and experience when it comes to teaching and discipling. The phases again are parenting. Phase 2 is pace setting, and then phase 3 is partnering. I just have to honestly just give God the glory for helping me to recognize this and understand this, and recognizing what he's been doing all of these years and helping me to do this, and just discipling me to recognize, here's this one piece, but then I need you to build upon this piece and go to this next piece, because he's not giving to me all at one time, but in spurts, so that I better understand how I need to disciple others and what it means to integrate this into churches. And so for the system that I have is a people growth discipleship system. So the parenting is the people growth discipleship phase and the church growth evangelism phase. And so the small groups fall in line with that as well. Although small groups are going to be an annual thing, the small group, the people growth discipleship, the church growth evangelism is all about community, relationship. It's kind of like the foundational pieces of discipleship. And then when you get into pace setting, you get into the follow me curriculum. And then you get into the assistance part. And then you also get into the third phase, partnering, which is where the leaders actually start to get together with those who are recommended as leaders to be small group leaders, to be disciplers that kind of work in the system of classes, and those who can actually teach on Wednesdays, and then for Bible studies, and then possibly on Sundays. So this is how the full look of the system is, and not only teaching, but also understanding what it means to be a leader. So you kind of have all three of these phases built into the system, from parenting to pace setting to partnering. And God has had to be patient with me, and I had to be patient with the process of what it means to go from one thing to the next, because it is very easy to feel like, oh, well, I have this part, or I have this system, and I don't need any other parts. But there were missing parts that I didn't know were missing. They weren't missing in the beginning because the Lord was giving me one thing, then a second thing, then a third thing. But I had to realize through it all, and God was showing me through his love and his mercy, and helping me through, again, my own book with Pathway to Patience, to just humble myself, to recognize, let God shape it up as he wants to shape it up, not holding on to what he gave me 5 years ago, but recognizing there's a process that he's given me. There's a system that he's given me. And don't stop with just the people growth discipleship class. I need you to recognize that what I've given you as far as for the body of Christ, and the gifting and the strategy and the processes and the resources, is so that other people can utilize these. And so don't stifle what I want to do, but I'm helping you to help others to integrate and to bring churches into discipleship training grounds, to replication hubs, to where we're not just coming to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, but getting to a place where we are tethered at all times with God's people. And some of that can kind of seem like a lot, but it's really not. It's just walking with people day by day in a structured and unstructured type of way. And I have to also not only allow God to do his work in me, I have to be patient with myself, but also have to be patient with those I disciple. And so as leaders, walking with people longer than you ever imagined, it just has to happen. If we want to grow people, if we want to grow leaders, if we want to grow those who can teach classes, and you don't have to teach all the classes, if you want to grow people who can lead small groups and they actually have an answer for those new people that come in and they have questions about the Bible, they can answer those questions. It's important that we continuously have this uninterrupted discipleship, so that we can continue to lead people not only to Christ, but also have this working system that grows people and helps them in their sanctified journey, in their sanctification journey. And so you will have to be with people for a while. And those who teach Gen Alpha need to long suffer with them. Those who teach Gen Z need to long suffer with them. Those who teach millennials need to be able to long suffer with them. Those who are millennials need to be able to teach the Gen Z. Gen Z needs to be able to teach Gen Alpha, and it goes on and on and on and on, because if it's intergenerational, then it continues from generation to generation, from year to year. And so integrating everybody in the service of the Lord is very important for us as believers, so that everybody is a part of it. So when we think about intergenerational patience, all of these systems of which we put together to be able to disciple starts from the young to the old, going from one generation to the next. And so it's very important that we are patient from generation to generation and understanding what's happening culturally, so that we can also update and change methods so that we can continue to get the message across to those who we're trying to bring to Christ and those we are discipling. There's no break in the growing process with the Lord, so there should not be any break in our congregations. Patience is a wonderful thing. It's a thing that God has given us as a part of the fruit of the Spirit. And Jesus shows us that through his life. So Jesus came to this earth, and patience was one of the keys to his ministry, because love was one of the keys to his ministry. He operated in love in such a way, and humility in such a way, that he was in Mary's stomach for 9 months. He was God, but he was also being developed in her stomach, month 1, month 2, month 3, day 1, day 2, day 3. And once he came out of the womb, he couldn't speak, although he knew all languages. That's patience, that's humility. He would not override his humanity for the ministry, that is patience. He grew in stature and wisdom, that is patience, knowing that God was fully human and fully man. He still grew in wisdom and stature. He learned the Torah, although he wrote the Torah. He had to respect those in his community, even when they were ignorant of the very things that they were ministering. He had to respect those in his community, even when he knew more than they knew when he was just a child. And he waited 30 years to begin his ministry, because that was a time the Father wanted him to begin the ministry. And so we have to patiently walk alongside people as Jesus. He patiently walked with his disciples when they didn't get his teaching, when they lacked faith, when they asked questions, when they came to him about who would be on the right hand of the Father, or disowning him or doubting him. He kept walking with them. And so walking with people through the different phases of their lives and the things that they're dealing with is just necessary. Dealing with people with those phases of their life is just so necessary, because it is a process that God wants us to take us through with other people. We have to walk with people. We have to be patient with them. And as leaders of our congregations, in order for other people to do the same thing, we have to actually mirror that. We have to show that. So from generation to generation, will you teach the ways that God has presented in the Bible, to be able to share, to be able to do God's will from generation to generation, because God has been patient with us. So we need to be patient with other people every step of the way. So in our first Follow Me class, one of the common threads that I saw from the lesson was, God has been after me my whole life. And that was very encouraging for them to see, and for me to hear and to see. They would say, I didn't even recognize it. He just kept on calling me and waiting for me to receive him. 10, 20, 30 years for some of them to actually say yes to God and to actually fall up under his lordship. And so will you do the same thing to disciple the generations? Because it's going to take that. There's going to be times where you don't want to do the things that it requires, but you'll have to do the things that it requires because that's what God required of us. And those who matured in the faith should be able to help those who are young in the faith and those who are struggling in their faith. We want to help the generations to have the mind of Christ, and we need to have the mind of Christ, and following the instructions of the Father is what we should be doing as followers of the Lord and building up the next generation for his glory. Galatians 5:22-23 says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And it will take the fruit of the Spirit. It will take us being sanctified to be able to live a life that God has called us to live, to help other people grow, to help our congregants grow, the lay members grow, other leaders grow, our friends and our family to grow. But remember to not make discipleship a burdensome thing. It is a rewarding thing. It is not burdensome. It is a slow walk, but it's the right walk. And if we're casting our cares to the Lord, then we can handle the things that people are coming to us with. We can handle being with people weekly. We can handle being with people monthly and bringing them into the knowledge of Christ so that they can continue to live out the will and the purposes that he has for them, because God has partnered with us. We have partnered with God to do his will on earth. And so it's taking us as humans based on his purposes to do those things. And when it's walked out in love, God can change things in our local church. So just remember, intergenerational patience is not something that we just think about and let it roll off, and then the next year, we just do our own thing. But it's about going from generation to generation, allowing ourselves to be in such a space with other believers that we can help grow them and help build up the body of Christ with the gifts and the talents that he's given us, with the encouragement that we can have with others, with the teaching that we have with others, with the parenting, the pace setting, and the partnering, so that they can glorify God and we continue to glorify God. And we do that as a body, and it continues to stay uninterrupted throughout the generations. All right, y'all, we will see you on the next episode. Bye. Thank you for watching and listening to the People Growth Discipleship Podcast. Don't just grow your church, grow your people. Please like, comment, and share this conversation to help us reach a wider audience. And go ahead and do it today, because tomorrow is too late to be great.